Amazing transformation. Millionaire discovers inspiring truth as maid faces humiliation on $8 blah. Emily adjusted her apron as she entered the grand ballroom, each marble surface gleaming under the chandeliers like a world entirely separate from her own. She could feel the cold glances of the guests slice through her very being, sharp, oppressing, undermining. These were the elites, intermingled in wealth and status, their laughter spilling like champagne, while she was relegated to the shadows. A finely crafted silver platter in her hands felt more like a weight draped against her chest, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Each smirk and the delicate swirl of their jeweled fingers reminded her that to them she was nothing more than part of the decor, an invisible servant. As she maneuvered through the crowd, the chatter filled her ears, making her own thoughts a tangled mess. Why did they look down at her so? Hadn't her parents taught her that dignity exists in hard work? Yet, doubts crept in. Had she truly amounted to something? The elites bantered about their sprawling estates and fancy cars, while Emily wiped crumbs from pristine countertops, the rhythm of her life reduced to servitude. Would she always be the maid? The question echoed in her mind like a taunting refrain. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. It was in a rare moment of quiet that she often found solace at the small garden across the street, where her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jacobs, would sit in her rickety chair, sharing stories of her own struggles. As Mrs. Jacobs spoke of resilience, Emily felt warmth blossoming in her heart against the chill of that mansion. It was here that she painted, desperately trying to capture the joy and pain mixed together on her canvas, but such expressions felt like mere whispers against the loud grandeur of the socialites' lives. One evening, David, the multimillionaire owner of the mansion, noticed her painting, colors vivid and alive against aged wood. As their paths crossed more often, discussions blossomed, enveloping Emily in a sense of validation she hadn't known she craved. He marveled at her talents and offered to sponsor her first exhibit, igniting sparks of hope within her. She could finally realize a dream. But as recognition grew, so did unease. David's business deals began to surface, laced with shadows and questionable morals. A knot formed in her stomach as she grappled with two realities. Here she stood at the precipice of her aspirations, yet tethered to the chains of her integrity. The night was thick with tension when she confronted him, heart racing, each word like a stone thrown at his carefully constructed facade. "Your success has a price, David," she challenged, the tremor in her voice betraying the whirlwind inside her head. Could she align herself with a man who toyed with ruin beneath glory? The thoughts rushed unrelentingly. Her belief in dignity, the abandon of a budding romance, those hours spent pouring her soul onto canvas, now seemingly frivolous. As questions arose, uncertainty thickened the air, wrapping tight around her throat, making her breath hitch. It would come crashing down, pressure mounting with every tick of the clock. Staring at her easel, paintbrush trembling between her fingers, Emily felt an impending doom. What if the truth shattered her dream? Would she lose him, and with that, the only light she had? The swirling chaos in her mind left her paralyzed, on the brink of a decision that could redefine everything she had built. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Emily's cluttered studio, the air heavy with the scent of turpentine and drying paint. In the silence, she felt the weight of her fears pressing against her chest, an inescapable reminder that the world outside her modest haven was teeming with expectations and judgments. The vibrant colors on her easel stood in stark contrast to the turmoil within. She picked up the brush yet again, each stroke frantic and disjointed, reflecting the conflicting narratives battling for her attention. Your success has a price. The words echoed relentlessly in her mind, a relentless mantra that left no room for comfort. David's charm had once enticed her, but now she felt entangled in a web of moral ambiguity. Would she compromise her values for a chance at recognition, even the slightest hint of self-worth? The dream she had harbored for so long now dangled precariously on a thin thread. Was her ambition worth sacrificing her integrity? Emily set down the brush with a forceful clatter, startling herself. She stepped back to survey her canvas, the once vibrant hues now muddied by uncertainty. Inspiration felt elusive, much like the self-assurance she desperately sought. Perhaps this was the moment for reflection rather than production. She turned her back to the canvas, letting herself contemplate the walls around her, adorned with unfinished works that told the stories of her struggles and aspirations. Stepping into her tiny kitchen, she filled a cup with lukewarm coffee, the rich aroma temporarily distracting her from the deeper unrest. A reflection in the window showed her weary eyes, the shadows beneath them betraying sleepless nights consumed by the gravity of her choices. Could she truly navigate this labyrinth of ambition and ethics, or would this journey leave her broken, torn between dreams and morals? As she sipped her coffee, her mind wandered to Mrs. Jacobs. The elderly neighbor had championed the strength of perseverance amid adversity. Perhaps it was time for a conversation that could pull her back from the brink. Grabbing her coat, she stepped into the cool night, each step towards the garden cultivating a resolve burgeoning within her. When she arrived, Mrs. Jacobs sat as usual, the rickety chair creaking slightly as she leaned forward to greet Emily. "You look troubled, dear. What's on your mind?" The warmth in her voice was like a balm to Emily's frayed spirit. "I don't know what to do," Emily confessed, the vulnerability spilling onto her lips. "I have this opportunity, but I feel like it's built on something toxic. How do I choose between my dreams and my conscience?" The old woman nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Dreams are weighty. Sometimes they carry us forward, and other times they can shatter us. It's not just what we chase, it's how we chase it. Always remember, true success aligns with your values." Those words lingered, dancing in Emily's thoughts as she retreated to her studio. Mrs. Jacobs' wisdom ignited a flicker of resolve. She grabbed a fresh canvas, determined to create a piece that embodied her struggle for integrity, an expression of both hope and uncertainty. With each movement of the brush, she infused more than color. She poured her essence, carving a path to reconciliation with her ambitions. But even as she painted, doubts whispered once more. Would she truly be able to navigate this perilous journey without losing herself? And if she chose her values, what would that mean for her burgeoning relationship with David? The night wore on, and as dawn crept in, Emily stood before her latest creation, a striking portrayal of a figure caught between light and shadow. She needed clarity, a definitive moment that could merge her spirit with her craft, and perhaps it would come from the heart of confrontation. The thought sent her pulse racing. She could no longer be a spectator in her own life. It was time to step into the narrative fully. The moment of truth awaited. With renewed determination, Emily turned to her phone, ready to call David, uncertainty mixing with anticipation as she prepared herself for whatever would follow. Emily's hand trembled as she hovered over her phone, the call to David feeling heavier than any brush she had ever wielded. She took a deep breath, letting the weight of her decision settle into her chest. Would she dare confront the man who symbolized both a glimmer of hope and a shadow of doubt in her life? No more hesitation, she whispered to herself, the words carrying a sense of urgency that propelled her fingers to dial his number. As the phone rang, every heartbeat became amplified, echoing her inner turmoil. When David's voice finally crackled through the line, she hesitated, a rush of memories flooding her, shared laughter, debates over art, and the way he made her feel invincible. But that invincibility felt tarnished by the compromises he invited. "Emily," he greeted, his tone bright yet mismatched with her heavy thoughts. "I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk about the exhibit." "Yes, I think we do," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. I have some concerns. A moment of silence followed, and she could almost hear the wheels turning in his mind, calculating the best way to keep their momentum going. Is this about the changes to your piece? We can get it to fit, trust me. No, she interrupted, her resolve sharpening. It's about the way we're going about this. It doesn't feel right. Emily, we're on the cusp of something big. You know how competitive this world is. Sometimes you have to play the game, he insisted, the charm in his voice replaced by the edge of impatience. Is that what it is? Just a game? She questioned, each word a challenge against the boundaries he had set. You're overthinking this. Your art is incredible, and I'm just trying to help you get the recognition you deserve, he replied, frustration creeping in. Recognition is meaningless if it comes at the cost of my integrity, she shot back, feeling an unexpected surge of courage. I can't allow my work to be manipulated for profit. David fell silent, the coolness of his reaction contrasting sharply with the warmth that once enveloped their conversations. You've changed, Emily. This isn't the artist I first met. His words stung like a slap, forcing her to rethink her own evolution. Had she changed, or was she merely tapping into a part of her that had always existed but had been buried beneath the weight of expectation? I've only learned to value my art and myself more. I won't compromise who I am, not anymore, she declared, feeling the flicker of fire in her belly. Then you're making a mistake, he replied, his tone dismissive. This is an opportunity that could elevate you beyond just a local artist. Maybe it's an opportunity for you, David, but not for me. I refuse to be your pawn in this game, she countered, her heart racing as the conversation unveiled a painful truth. She wasn't just battling for her integrity, but for her identity. Ending the call felt like severing a toxic cord, yet the aftermath left her reeling. She sank down onto the edge of her bed, heart still pounding, feeling the full weight of her decisions mingled with a burgeoning sense of empowerment. By confronting David, she had taken the first step toward reclaiming her artistic voice. But in the wake of that confrontation lingered an unsettling question. Without David's influence, could she still navigate the turbulent waters of the art world alone? As doubt crept back in, she realized this renewed independence would require more than emotional strength. It would demand strategic navigation, boundaries to set, alliances to form, and perhaps a clearer vision of what success truly meant. Staring at her latest canvas, she felt a familiar longing to express the chaos within her. There, amid the splatters of paint, was where her true voice lay. She would utilize this moment to reshape not just her art, but the entire narrative of her life. With a newfound determination, she reached for fresh paint, prepared to redefine her path. The next piece would be her most authentic yet. But the question loomed. Once she unveiled her new self to the world, would they accept her for who she truly was? Or would they expect her to fit a mold that no longer existed? That uncertainty thrummed through her as she grabbed a brush, ready to transform her fear into a canvas of defiance. It was time to confront what lay ahead, steering her own representation and reclaiming her story. The real challenge awaited just beyond the horizon as Emily prepared to confront not just the art scene, but her deepest fears and aspirations that would test her resolve once more. The paintbrush met the canvas with a purpose, each stroke an exploration of her turbulent emotions. Emily immersed herself in vibrant colors, watching as they fused together, resembling her own inner chaos transforming into clarity. This was no longer about pleasing anyone but herself. Each hue became her rebellion against the expectations that had once confined her. As she stepped back, a sense of satisfaction washed over her. This piece captured her essence, the complexity of her journey, and the strength she had begun to cultivate. Yet doubt lingered like a shadow, whispering whether this raw honesty would resonate with anyone besides herself. Determined to test her new direction, she decided to attend a local gallery opening that weekend. It was a chance to showcase her latest work and gauge the atmosphere. She needed to interact with other artists, hear their critiques, and envision a future devoid of old ties. Arriving at the vibrant space filled with the chatter of critics and creators, Emily felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She clutched her portfolio tightly. Could she truly engage in discussions about her art without David's endorsement? Each step deeper into the gallery demanded confidence she hadn't fully claimed yet. The walls were adorned with eclectic pieces, each a declaration of personal truth. As she made her way through, Emily spotted familiar faces among the crowd, artists whose work she admired but hadn't had the courage to approach before. This was her opportunity to not only introduce her transformed self, but to forge real connections on her terms. After accidentally catching the eye of Tara, a local avant-garde artist she had long admired, Emily felt an unexpected twinge of embarrassment grip her. Was she worthy of engaging with someone so established? Tensing, she initiated small talk, battling her insecurities. To her relief, Tara's approachability allowed their conversation to flow like a shared dance of ideas. "I've seen your earlier pieces," Tara said, her gaze unwavering. "You've got something special. What are you working on now?" As she described her new artistic vision, the weight of her resolve solidified. Tara listened intently, nodding in affirmation and pushing for deeper. The dialogue flourished until Emily caught sight of David entering the gallery, flanked by art buyers whose regard reflected the success she had once aspired to. Her heart raced at the sight of him. For a moment, it felt like the room narrowed on them, the air thick with tension. Sensing the potential discomfort, she focused on Tara, engaging even more passionately in their conversation. David's figure lingered in her peripheral vision, and she absorbed the stinging sensation of confrontation. The decision to forfeit not just his influence, but also the longing for validation from someone so pivotal in her past, fortified her. "What do you wish to achieve with your art?" Tara asked, drawing her attention back fully. "It's about authenticity," Emily articulated, her voice gaining strength. "I want to create work that speaks to the truth of experience rather than fits a prescribed expectation." "Then you're on the right path," Tara affirmed, her approval igniting a flicker of hope within Emily. As Tara moved on to speak with someone else, Emily still felt the tug of David's presence, a reminder of what she was leaving behind. It dawned on her that maintaining a connection to her past didn't mean she was willingly tied to it forever. Fueled by this insight, she decided to approach David, grasping her portfolio. Nervous energy buzzed through her as she crossed the gallery floor. Just as she reached him, the atmosphere shifted. It was a pivotal moment where every affirmation or rejection could reshape her burgeoning identity. "Emily," David greeted, his tone revealing nothing of the turmoil that had enshrouded their last conversation. The time had come to face the depths of what separating from him truly meant. Would he recognize her growth, or would he insist she return to the familiar shadows of their past? This encounter held answers she could not predict, and it sat heavily on her chest as she prepared to speak. "Emily," David said again, this time with a slight tilt of his head, as if waiting for insight into her transformation. His eyes searched hers, looking for the connection they used to share. The air felt charged, a paradox of nostalgia and the unfamiliarity she had recently embraced. Here stood the embodiments of her past, drawing forth shadows of self-doubt while simultaneously challenging her newly forged resolve. "Hi, David," she replied, steadying her breath. She noticed how the weight of her portfolio hung like an anchor in her hands, a reminder of the journey she intended to convey. "Are you still painting the same way?" he asked, feigning nonchalance, but she detected an undertone of curiosity. It was an inquiry laced with expectation, the unspoken hope that she would reveal more of the familiar past he cherished. "Not at all," Emily said, her voice surprisingly firm. "I'm focusing on work that truly reflects who I am now. It's different from what you remember." The statement revealed what was perhaps the most profound truth. Her art was no longer a reflection of their shared vision, but rather a manifestation of her own spirit. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Show me what you've been working on." In that moment, she remembered Tara's encouragement, the fierce nodding and affirmations. This was her chance, not only to present her work, but to showcase her growth. With a self-assured motion, she unclasped her portfolio, revealing the vibrant piece she had created. David's eyes roamed over the canvas, a piece pulsating with a chaotic blend of colors that mirrored her emotional evolution. She watched as his expression shifted. The initial intrigue morphed into a perplexing mixture of admiration tinged with skepticism. "It's different." "Different how?" she pressed, the determination to break free from past limitations igniting an inner fire. His gaze narrowed, a calculating look reflecting his desire to re-establish the dynamic he was comfortable with. "I mean, there's a rawness to it. I wonder if it will resonate with the audience." Her heart pounded, but now it felt more like a thrum of defiance rather than fear. "Isn't that the point? I'm not seeking to please everyone anymore. Minimalism and technique don't define me. My journey does." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, a crack in the familiar facade. For a brief moment, Emily saw the man she had once idolized grapple with the reality of her assertion. "You've clearly put a lot of yourself into this," he finally admitted, though a hint of uncertainty remained in his tone. The words validated her choice in ways she never anticipated. "I have," she replied, buoyed by the exchange. "Now it's time to step beyond the expectations. I'm ready to dive into what really matters." She sensed the tension pulling between them, not necessarily adversarial, but fraught with the complexities of their shared history. David appeared to gather himself, straightening in a way that signaled he hadn't totally relinquished the previous dynamic. "Then I guess we're both on different paths now." Somehow, the acknowledgement didn't wound her as she thought it would. Instead, it felt liberating. As David turned slightly, engaging with another guest, Emily's gaze shifted to the canvases surrounding her. They told stories of struggles and victories, reflective of a realm where emotional honesty thrived. Yet, with her newfound breath of confidence came the realization of the unknown territories that still lay ahead. Had she truly internalized the lessons of her artistic journey, or was this chapter merely scratching the surface? Determined to explore her potential fully, she made a decision that reverberated through her core. She would resist the urge to remain tethered to the ghosts of her past. As the evening wore on, Emily realized she needed to redefine her own narrative, not only in art, but in life. The challenges ahead demanded a fortified spirit, ready to embrace the trials that came with establishing her identity anew. With that thought firmly anchored in her mind, she resolved to seek out more opportunities to push her limits in ways she hadn't yet envisioned. There was a horizon stretching far beyond this gallery, waiting for her. And as she contemplated her next move, a figure stepped into her view. A local curator she had always respected, now approaching with purposeful intent. What awaited her in this next encounter could either propel her forward or signal a return to the shadows. Would she rise to meet the challenge? Emily took a deep breath as the curator approached, a polished professional with an air of authority that always drew attention. She felt a rush of adrenaline course through her veins, uncertain whether it was fear or excitement that fueled her. The journey she had just begun promised to test her resolve, but she couldn't back down now. "Emily," the curator said, his voice smooth and inviting, "I've seen glimpses of your work before, but I'm intrigued to see your current pieces. Tell me about this one." He gestured toward her canvas, now an emblem of her courage. Pride swelled in her chest, joining the nerves tightly coiled in her stomach. This was her moment, a chance to articulate her vision without the shadow of expectation. "This piece reflects my emotional journey over the past few years. It's raw and unrefined, but it's a truth I needed to express," she replied, consciously avoiding the usual pretenses she would have once adopted. "Interesting choice of colors and textures," he observed, leaning in to study the brushstrokes. "But rawness can alienate viewers. Are you concerned it might not resonate? Art often thrives on connection." "Art can connect differently based on authenticity," Emily challenged, feeling an unexpected surge of confidence. "I'm not looking to create something palatable. I want to provoke thought, even discomfort. Isn't that the essence of true art?" The curator regarded her with newfound interest. There was a flicker of respect in his eyes, yet she sensed a caution in his expression. "You have a point. However, the art world can be unforgiving. Are you prepared to face its scrutiny? Scrutiny is part of the journey, she said, her voice steady but her mind racing. I suppose that's where growth lies. I've spent too long hiding behind what was expected of me. If I can't face criticism, how can I hope to evolve? He leaned back, pondering her words. You seem more resolute than before. I'd like to see more of your work, but I'd like to introduce you to some influential figures. Would you be ready for that? The question hung in the air, thick with potential. Inviting herself into that circle was intimidating, a step away from her comfort zone that had once felt so secure. But this was growth, real growth, that demanded she moved beyond fear. Yes, she asserted, the word fueled by an unexpected resolve. I'm ready. The curator smiled, a blend of approval and challenge in his eyes. Fantastic. It's time to elevate your profile. Just remember, once you step into the spotlight, there's no turning back. Emily nodded, a mix of apprehension and exhilaration thrumming through her. Could she truly handle the criticisms that would inevitably come? The certainty of rejection simmered at the back of her mind, but it no longer felt overwhelming. The evening wore on, filled with discussions of techniques, connections, and pathways forward. Each exchange bolstered her conviction, reinforcing the notion that her voice could indeed resonate in this space, unfiltered and unashamed. Emily would navigate the complexities of this new world armed with her truth. As her resolve solidified, the curator leaned in closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. There's a gallery opening next month that might be a good fit for your work. The stakes are high, filled with well-established artists. Do you think you're ready to showcase your piece there? The question ignited a spark, mixing fear with exhilaration. This was the moment she had been working toward, a chance to fully embrace the artist she had transformed into. The weight of her past intertwined with the hope of her future, and for once, she felt ready to fight for her space in this competitive realm. As the conversation shifted and her heart raced with possibility, she couldn't shake the dawning realization. Each step she took into this new arena of art signified not just professional growth, but a deeper personal awakening. In that moment, one question lingered, echoing in her mind, more potent than before. Was she truly prepared for the challenges awaiting her in the art world? And would she emerge resilient enough to claim her place among those artists she both admired and feared? Emily's heart pounded as the curator's words etched into her mind. A gallery showing meant exposure, validation, and a testing ground for her authentic self. Yet, beneath the excitement lay an undercurrent of hesitation, taut and electric. She was poised on the brink of something monumental, but shadows of self-doubt whispered insidiously. The following week was a flurry of activity. Each day, the canvas in her studio beckoned with the weight of expectations, hers and others. Armed with brushes and colors, she wrestled with the urge to refine her work toward mainstream appeal. Yet, each time she picked up a brush, she halted. Emily remembered the curator's words about connection. Would an attempt at pleasing the crowd dilute her message? As she grappled with this, she discovered a fierce inner voice, emerging from the chaos within. Instead of retreating into comfort, Emily leaned into the discomfort. The strokes she laid down on the canvas felt like small acts of rebellion against the limits she had self-imposed. The emotions surged, joy, anxiety, trepidation. She envisioned the gallery, buzzing with patrons and critics alike. What would they see? Would they scoff or appreciate her truth? It was a reality she could no longer ignore. She started documenting her thoughts, each word crafting a narrative that paralleled her artistic evolution. In those pages, she unearthed nuances of her identity that had been dormant. The artist she was becoming was not solely defined by her brushwork, but her authentic reflection during this tumultuous phase. A week before the opening, Emily attended a workshop led by a renowned artist known for provocative installations. Nervously clutching her sketchbook, she watched her peers engage with the instructor, each interaction layered in confidence. She felt like an outsider, the imposter syndrome gripping at her. Yet, instead of shrinking away, she approached him during the break. "Excuse me, I really admire your work. I've been exploring my identity through art, but I find it so challenging to be unapologetically authentic." He turned, an inquisitive look on his face. "You're asking the wrong question. It's about what you're willing to reveal about yourself, not how others perceive you." His words struck a chord, igniting a further desire to delve deeper. It was more than an art piece. It was about unveiling her story. As the conversation flowed, she expressed her fears of rejection and judgment. "Is it foolish to feel that my life's experiences should dictate my art?" "Not at all," he replied firmly. "Your truth is the most powerful medium. Don't shy away from it." That brief exchange became pivotal. Leaving the workshop, Emily walked with a bounce in her step, fueled by the knowledge that her art could serve as a union of vulnerabilities connecting to others. The time came for her to finalize the artwork for the gallery. She layered her truths, each decision imbued with intention. The piece became a tapestry of her journey, powerfully raw and unapologetically profane. As she painted her last strokes, a tumultuous wave of clarity washed over her. The day of the opening arrived, and as she stood in front of her work, people began to gather. Nervous energy rippled through her, but she anchored herself in the reality of what she had accomplished. She breathed in deeply, ready to welcome any response. Suddenly, she spotted familiar faces in the crowd, people from her past, some who had doubted her. Would they recognize this new iteration of herself? The curator approached, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly, a knowing smile on his lips. "More than ever." In that moment, she felt herself teetering on the brink of transformation. She was no longer merely a participant. She was an architect of her fate, poised to face whatever awaited her. As curiosity and fear surged just beneath the surface, another thought pierced her mind. Would she have the strength to confront the critiques that might arise? And ultimately, what kind of artist would she become once the lights dimmed and her truth was laid bare? Emily stood amidst the hum of the gallery, the mingling voices vibrating around her, an overwhelming chorus of anticipation and judgment. The art world had a way of amplifying insecurities, and she could feel the collective eyes sizing her up, probing for flaws, eager to dissect her truth. Did they understand her vision? Was she merely a carousel of colors and lines, or was there something deeper flickering just beneath the surface? As the first wave of guests approached, a knot formed in her stomach. She knew she had to ground herself, to remember that every brushstroke bore her vulnerability. This was not just an exhibition, it was a declaration of her evolution. Each observer stood before her canvas, her narrative laid bare. But could they see it? Would they recognize the struggle, the rebirth? The curator's words echoed in her mind. What you're willing to reveal is what draws people in. With each conversation, she aimed to channel that truth. A woman, resplendent in an artful blue ensemble, approached with an air of confidence. "Your piece feels incredibly personal. What motivated its creation?" Emily felt heat rush into her cheeks, but she steadied herself. "It speaks to the journey of self-acceptance and the complexities of identity. It mirrors the dialogues I've had within myself, between fear and authenticity." The woman nodded, contemplative, and as she moved on, Emily sensed a flicker of appreciation behind the initial nervousness. That small acknowledgement ignited a spark. As the hours passed, Emily conversed with critic and collector alike, peering into reflections of herself in their responses. Some approached with respect, others with skepticism. Each interaction pushed her to confront the myriad views on her work and ultimately on herself. Who did they expect her to be? Who was she in that moment? Pushing through the crowd, she found herself outside for a moment of solitude, the crisp air washing over her like a balm. She pulled out her sketchbook, the pages filled with raw emotions and tangled thoughts over the past weeks. It was a form of therapy, these sketches woven with her experience and fears. Could she use this energy, this confrontation of perception, to fuel her next steps? Refocusing on the upcoming challenges, she decided to amplify her forthcoming body of work. This exhibition was merely the beginning. It was an invitation to an ongoing dialogue. Painting was not just a means of expression for Emily. It became a living testament to her growth, a commitment to unveiling the layers she had previously concealed. As the evening wore on, the audience thinned, but her resolve thickened. Critiques were part of the game, and through each piece of feedback, she found the opportunity to expand. Yet amidst the excitement, the undercurrents of fear clawed at her. Visions of her childhood, the dismissals, the mockery of her artistic inclinations circled her thoughts like vultures. Were the scars too deep? Could she truly transform, evolve, beyond the shadow of doubt and into the artist she aspired to be? Hers was a story yet untold, and she realized that this experience would carve her path forward. She had been liberated from the need for approval. Now, she had to discern how to navigate her newfound freedom. Every painting, every encounter became a step toward claiming her voice, embracing her identity. As she re-entered the gallery, a comment snagged her attention. "This one feels like it has layers," a man said, his fascination palpable. But what he didn't realize was that it was more than just paint. Within those layers lay her struggle, her victories, each one a reflection of battles fought silently within. Would she allow this recognition to inflate her confidence, or allow the impending judgments to destabilize her again? As she moved closer to her work, she realized the next chapter of her journey was just beginning, a transitional phase towards embracing the full spectrum of who she was. With the weight of expectation shifting within her, she prepared to greet the dawn of a new chapter, uncertain but resolute. The moment had come to consider. How would she reclaim her narrative when confronted with comments from those who may not understand? Would she hold her ground as an artist, or falter under the weight of judgment once more? Emily felt the lingering warmth of the man's comments seep into her bones, though the unease gnawed at her resolve. She had spent so much time crafting these layers, yet the idea of someone stumbling upon the core of her work without truly understanding it felt unsettling. Every brushstroke was not merely color, it was her life, her pain, her aspirations. She stepped further into the gallery, her breath hitching as she passed each piece. The vivid contrast she'd fought to create echoed her internal battles, vibrant clashes of emotion rendered in acrylic and oil. It dawned on her that the deeper she delved into her arts, the more she could resist being encapsulated by others' perceptions. If she truly wanted her work to articulate her journey, she would have to be unapologetically bold, embracing her narrative even amid judgments. She recalled a recent conversation with an old professor, a moment that felt like a pivot point in her development. "Art isn't just about what others see, it's about what you reveal," he told her, a fire in his eyes. "You owe it to yourself to bear your truth, even if it scares you." It was that fear that jostled her focus now, that restricted her flow and cracked open fresh doubts. Had she revealed enough, or merely teased at the edge of vulnerability? As the gallery dimmed and shadows cast a new light upon her work, Emily sensed the pull of the unknown. Each visitor represented a subjective mirror, reflecting opinions and interpretations she could not control. And yet, the idea that she could instigate transformation within even a single person, that thought emboldened her. Understanding that her voice could resonate, perhaps even inspire, became her steadying force. She belied the suffocating dread that gripped her heart, propelling her to confront the spectators. A small gathering stood before one of her pieces, their murmuring adding another layer of tension. Emily approached them, curiosity stitched with trepidation. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter deep inside. One woman, an artist herself, turned with an earnest expression. "It resonates with feelings of loss and hope," she murmured, eyes glistening. "I can feel the journey you've been on." Emily's heart soared, momentarily dispelling the storm inside her. Perhaps this was what she needed, a reminder that amidst the judgment, genuine understanding existed too. But as others chimed in, tossing around phrases like, "That's an interesting choice," or "I'm still trying to understand it," the wind shifted. She was swept back into a spiral of insecurity. What if her decisions were perceived as mere whims rather than profound expression? She turned away, slipping into a quiet corner of the room, heart racing. Was it just passion, or had she locked herself within the shadow of someone else's expectations? She had fought to break free from dismissive thoughts, yet here they were, clawing at the edges of her burgeoning resolve. With every self-doubt rearing its vicious head, Emily clenched her fists. This was her moment to reassess the very fabric of her artistic identity. It wasn't solely about creating pieces that would impress. It demanded a deeper connection with both herself and her audience. She took a deep breath, her mind racing with new sketches that flowed from her pen as she sketched ideas, shapes morphing into glorious textures that would interlace her narratives with even more fervor. She would dive into this new phase, not just as a painter, but as a storyteller. The reality of expressiveness wouldn't be constrained by external judgment. But before the momentum pulled her into this new vision, the fear of vulnerability remained, a specter that refused to be silent. As she returned to her work, she overheard two critics whispering nearby, one saying, "What if her fears trap her even more?" The thought echoed in Emily's mind. The true measure of her growth lay not in the accolades she received, but in her ability to embrace those fears and use them to bolster her work, to weave her truth among layers that others might overlook. Would she rise to the challenge, unearthing her hidden depths as she wove her story into colors and textures? Or would the weight of expectation breach her resolve yet again? The musing spun within her, demanding an answer she had to confront head-on. As she contemplated the pressing concerns of tomorrow, a resolve crystallized within her. She was on the precipice of something greater, but that journey would demand every ounce of bravery she could summon. The time had come to face not just critics, but herself, head-on. In the quiet of her thoughts, a singular question pulsed with urgency. What would she be willing to sacrifice for the sake of her art and authenticity? Standing in the middle of her latest exhibition, Emily felt a profound sense of completion wash over her, resonating in every fiber of her being. Each vibrant stroke on her canvas was no longer just a reflection of her innermost turmoil. They were declarations of her resilience and fortitude. Growth. She had come so far from the uncertain maid seeking validation in the shadows of opulence. Now she stood as an artist, a force to be reckoned with, unapologetic and fierce. The gallery felt electric, filled with fellow artists and critics, each responding to her work in ways she could not have imagined. Among the thrumming energy of the room, the voices of those who had once cast doubt upon her echoed in her mind. Art is merely what others perceive. Yet now, she was equipped with the knowledge that true art transcends external validation. It introspects, it challenges, it provokes. As the night unfolded, patrons approached her, drawn not only to the color, but to the underlying narratives she had meticulously crafted. The woman from earlier returned, her eyes shimmering with understanding. "Your journey is palpable," she said. The words resonating as genuine recognition cut through the haze of uncertainty. It speaks to those of us who have felt lost and found and lost again. Emily's heart soared at the acknowledgement of her struggle and triumph. This was her achievement. She was fostering connections through shared experiences. The fear that had once clutched her soul began to ebb as she engaged in conversation after conversation, revealing the layers embedded in her authentic expression. No longer defined by how others perceived her, she had transformed into the architect of her own narrative. The following morning brought a fresh perception, still tinged with the adrenaline of the prior evening. Scattered amongst the remnants of the gallery, crumpled napkins, empty wine glasses, was a collection of business cards from potential patrons and collaborators, each a gateway to opportunities she had once deemed inaccessible. They spoke directly to her newfound resolve, a tangible reminder that her art was beloved simply for being true and raw. Days turned into weeks, and as she began to network and collaborate, the dormant artistic visions within her began to flourish actively. Sessions with her new connections introduced her to modern techniques, daring themes, and avant-garde practices. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt invigorated. They encouraged her to dig deeper, to reveal her truths without hesitation. The layers of her work began to multiply, narratives intertwining, each portraying facets of herself that had long been hidden in childhood shyness or the imposed mask of servitude. Then came her biggest accomplishment yet. One crisp autumn afternoon, the curator who had first recognized her potential reached out to let her know they wanted her to showcase her work at a prestigious national exhibition. Emily's heart raced. This was more than an opportunity for exposure. It was a chance to validate each step of her evolution, a canvas for her newfound identity to be revealed to broader audiences. She spent weeks preparing for the show, pouring everything she had learned into creating pieces that embodied her transformation. Each brushstroke became a breathing testament to her authenticity, bridging the gap between past insecurities and present confidence. On the night of the exhibition, surrounded by influential critics, artists, and hopeful gallerists, Emily stepped into the spotlight with her heart beating steadily, firmly, without a trace of hesitation. As she stood amidst her framed works, she felt an empowering clarity settle over her. This was not just an exhibition. This was a celebration of her journey from invisibility to presence. Every comment and reaction felt validating, reinforcing her belief that she had chosen the right path. She had conquered her fears of validity and acceptance, proving not only to herself, but to others that her art, once stifled by doubts, could speak volumes. The final piece presented at the exhibition was her pièce de résistance, a vibrant tapestry intricately depicting the struggles between fear and authenticity. The responses were overwhelmingly positive, flowing like symphonies of respect and admiration. In that moment, Emily grasped how far she had come. She was no longer the maid in the shadows, but a recognized artist standing proud in her truth. As she drifted away from the crowd, enveloped by contentment, she recalled Mrs. Jacobs' wise words, "True success aligns with your values." Today, standing before captivated faces, having relied solely on her insight, her talents, and her integrity, she realized that she did not only achieve recognition, but also established her identity. With renewed vigor and conviction in herself beyond the constraints of expectations, Emily had made her mark, not just as an artist, but as a symbol of resilience, growth, and the unapologetic pursuit of authenticity. And as she stepped into the chilly night, transformed and illuminated by her journey, she proclaimed softly to herself, "I am home." Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about how Emily's journey impacted you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. These moments of personal overcoming matter.